Hello and welcome to Zestology. This is the podcast all about living with more zest, energy and vitality. As a train goes by overhead, coming to you from central London by the Thames. And today's podcast is with best-selling time management and productivity expert Julie Morgenstern. She's been helping people save time for years. Saving time. Sounds good. Creating more time. And now she's turned her attention to productivity and parenting in her latest book, Time to Parent. And I think that productivity hacks are relevant whether you're a parent or not. So we talk about making a little bit more time, about making a little bit more time when you're a parent. And obviously that is a theme for me at the moment. But this podcast, don't worry, is not going to become all about parenting. But there are a couple of questions that pop up about that in a couple of podcasts over the last few months. And then plenty on productivity in this podcast as well. Never checking email in the morning was the theme of Julie's New York Times best-selling book. She wrote a book all about never checking email in the morning. And it's quite early in the morning as I record this. And I'm pleased to announce that I've not checked my email yet, so that feels pretty good. So the tips in this podcast include never checking email in the morning, laying out your home to be more present, setting things up to be more present, doing the dishes together, being a media mentor to your child, synchronizing screen time with your partner and anyone else who lives in the house, and loads more stuff as well. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you get plenty out of it. Here she is, Julie Morgenstern on Zestology. Julie, thank you so much for joining me on Zestology. Julie Morgenstern, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tony. It's nice to be here.
Well, I've really been looking forward to talking to you, not least because your latest book is called Time to Parent, and I am expecting to become a parent for the first time fairly shortly.
Oh.
So one of the things that is probably going through my mind, and probably every single person who is expecting a baby goes through this, is I quite like kind of being independent and having the time to do things. And I'm a bit worried that I'm not going to have the time in the future. So can you reassure me?
Yeah, I can reassure you, but in a kind of an interesting way. I would say that one of the things that I discovered when writing the book, and it's my sixth book, but it's the first book that I did scientific research. I read the science of human development because the question, listen, organizing your life as a solo person is hard enough, right? Now you have kids and a multi-person household and many different schedules and needs to synchronize, and it gets to be quite a complex endeavor. But one of the things that I realized is that self-care, which is really goes when you have kids, you just start to feel so guilty. Your time gets divided between basically work and your family and your kids, and you feel any time you take for yourself is you're stealing it in a way. That's the way most parents feel. They're stealing it from their jobs or they're stealing it from their kids. But we need self-care to go the distance. We need self-care to feel like ourselves. And it is so hard parenting is a lot of problem solving. Like every day it's creative problem solving. There's a million things you have to figure out every day. And you need your energy and you need to be grounded and you need your creativity. So how do you fit in self-care? Here's the secret. Before we have kids, we do self-care in large blocks of time. We spend all day on Saturday and Sunday on our hobbies. We have long date nights. We hang out with our friends for hours over some beers or bottles of wine or long meals. And everything is a sort of long form. Once you have kids, you can't sustain the long form style of self-care. So you have to change your approach and develop short form styles of self-care. It's basically dosing self-care in 20-minute doses or less. And it's very revolutionary when you realize that. So exercise, you have to move from like 90 minutes 3 times a week to, there are, the 8-minute workout, the 20-minute workout, the 10-minute workout. These are very, very viable, high impact, just as good for your body, mind, and soul as the long form. And those can be folded into your schedule.
It sounds like you might be exercising now. Are you multitasking here, Julie?
No, I am not. But the door to our office was just opened by somebody, and you heard the noise on the other side.
Yeah, it's okay. I was like, is she on a treadmill? Is she practicing what she preaches?
Waste not a moment. No, but multitasking is actually not something that I advocate. So we can get to that whenever you want. No, multitasking, not a good thing. So anyway, I don't know if that, I have this framework that I introduce in the book, which I'm more than happy to talk about, on how you can sort of organize your time to make sure that literally you are there for your kids and also there for yourself, and you don't lose yourself in the process. It's very possible.
Well, and it strikes me also that, you talk about self-care. One of the best ways to care for your kids is to care for yourself, because if you're not in a good place, they're not going to be at their best either, are they?
They are not. And it's really true. But then once you have a baby, you're like, oh, well, when is that supposed to happen?
Yeah.
If your kid's crying and they're unpredictable. And that's where the short bursts really comes in. So,
because
right.
you promise on your book more time and less guilt. So how does that work then? Because I'm thinking that sounds pretty good.
Well, let me put it this way. When we're having our kids, I kind of came up with the job description for parenting that I think we've been missing for, craving for generations. And parents have unfortunately been doing the most complex job in the world with complete job ambiguity.
Yeah.
No one will define the job. Everybody's like, oh, you figure it out. You'll be a natural, follow your instincts. And that is just ridiculous. Nobody has, job ambiguity in any position, and I'm sure listeners can relate to this. If you are not sure what your job is in any company, in any role, in any industry, any job feels infinite. You don't know when your job is done if you don't know what your job is. And that's the way parents have been parenting for generations. It's just like, figure it out. And then the job feels endless. So I really believe, as a time management expert, productivity expert, I've been coaching people for almost 30 years, that job clarity is really the key to both feeling in control, knowing where your strengths are, where you need to sort of bone up on your skills, and managing the stress of any job. Clarity. If you know what your job is and you know what good looks like, it's a lot easier to manage yourself. So I came up with a job description, and here's what it is. Okay. I'll just try to. So first of all, you have to divide the job into 2 parts: raising a human and being a human.
Okay.
And and then each of those have 4 components. And so to raise a human, we need to divide our time as parents among 4 activities. We have to spend time providing for our kids, right? Making money, managing money so we can pay for stuff. We have to spend time arranging the logistics of our kids' lives, like who's their doctor, who's taking them to the doctor, where do they go to school, what are they having for lunch, who's picking them up, etc., etc. What are we having for dinner, who's cleaning up the dishes, etc. Then we have to spend time relating to our kids. That's that sort of really getting to know your kid for the unique individual that they are, spending time with them, learning who they are. And then we have to spend time teaching our kids, right? Which is like life skills and values. And you're all about that, Tony, on your show, for success in life. So that's providing, arranging, relating, and teaching. That's 4 things. That's actually spells an acronym PART, as in doing your part for another person. That's raising a human. That's all you have to divide your time between to make a happy, healthy, successful kid. So that's on the one hand. It's a lot, I know, but it's not 8,000 things. It's 4.
Okay.
It's not, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Is your heart beating faster or slower? You feeling
At the moment, I'm
numb?
thinking, God, there's a lot to think about, isn't there?
That's a lot to think about. And like, even before we get to the being a human, here's another thing that I have observed and think is a truth, is that parents get into trouble thinking they can do it all. And one of the real keys, and we've all heard this expression that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
It does. Because if you just look at the workload that I just described, the amount of time that all of that stuff takes, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for one person. It's a lot for 2 people. So the more help that you can get and the more that you can delegate to, whether it's friends, neighbors, extended family, hired help, any volunteer who offers to help on any of the things that can be delegated, you should always say yes.
Brilliant.
Don't always say yes. And it actually enables people to feel good when they're able to. We all feel good when we help somebody else, right? Like, you're not being a hero by telling people, oh, I've got this, I don't need any help. No, actually, it's a gift when you let somebody make a contribution that's going to make your life easier. That's sort of motivating for all of us.
Yeah.
So delegation, I mean, that's my biggest, second to the 20-minute self-care, delegate, accept all help offered. Always.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's starting to feel a bit clearer, a little bit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I know it's all in anticipation.
It's all exactly. Yeah. But it's actually really interesting. I had lunch with a friend of mine today, and she's a mum of 2 boys who are 10 and 8, and she works full time as well. And I was telling her that I was going to be chatting to you, and she said, "Oh, please ask her." And she actually wrote it down. She said, "Please ask her how a mum who is working full time should manage her time to cook meals for her family, exercise, read, do yoga, run, hang out with her friends occasionally, have date night, and spend quality time with her kids." And then she said, "Oh, and by the way, add in dog walking and ferrying kids to activities as well." And I thought, God, that is a lot.
It's a lot. And so that's exactly what I'm talking about. So she's right. I mean, that's the big dilemma, and that's the big question. And the first part of her list is the stuff she should be delegating the most. All that arranging, the logistics, the picking them up and dropping them off, and the walking the dog. The key, the biggest unlock is for all those logistics to be truly equally shared by the entire household. Kids from the age of 3 or 4 can start picking up their own toys and putting them away. And moms and dads, I always recommend do the dishes together every night. It's one of the best relationship savers in a marriage, is literally do the dishes together. There are actually statistics that say that couples who share the chores and do the dishes together have more sex. So
really? That's classic.
So it's a very good investment because those logistics really hang if it all falls on the shoulders of the woman and sometimes the man, but more often studies say on the woman. It's just a huge burden that they can't quiet their mind because the list is endless. And so when the workload is truly shared and owned by everybody, it lifts a burden that frees up time for all that other good stuff. Quality time with each other, quality time with the kids, time to exercise, etc.
And this is before we even really get on to kind of the productivity of one's purpose or one's work. And, I've been following your work for ages. And I know you wrote a book called Never Check Email in the Morning, which is something that I always do. Not first thing, I'd like to point out, but kind of pretty early. But I know that the most important thing to do on a day is not normally email. So it actually makes a lot of sense to me, that book. And I wondered if you could kind of talk a little bit more about that and how it might perhaps tie in with everything else that you've been talking about.
Sure, for sure. Well, one of the things, and we should get back to the raising the being a human, right? So the listeners aren't hanging for too long on those 4 parts of self. Should we do that now or
Yeah,
go
yeah.
on?
Let's do that now, and then we'll come on to email then. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've done it before when I've done interviews, and I'm like, oh, we never got back to the other halves.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you have to finish. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the being a human, in order to, and your friend kind of nailed it in her question. There are 4 things to be happy, healthy humans. We need to divide our time between to restore our energy. We need to spend time on sleep. So you have to become a really good sleeper, especially when you become a parent. You have to really work at sleep.
Yeah.
Exercise, love, which is adult relationships, and fun, which is whatever your hobbies or passions are that make you really feel like you. You never want to abandon those, even as a parent, and maybe especially as a parent. So that's SELF, self as in fueling yourself. So you do your part and you fuel yourself, and you can really juggle it all smartly. So that's that.
Yeah. And just on exercise, and it's funny, isn't it? I've become much more aware in recent years that, and I actually was thinking about it today, that when I have a really good workout and do some proper exercise, especially early in the day, it does massively affect just my mood.
Yes.
And energy, and obviously this podcast is about energy, but there's something about, you could knacker yourself in the gym, but you've got more energy afterwards.
It's true. It is a source of energy, and it's also a source of, I think, clearer thinking. Like, you do everything better when you are doing that. Like, exercise, it does things for your brain, it does things for your energy. You're more creative, you're more strategic, you come up with better answers. I think it makes you a better worker, and I think it makes you a better parent and a better partner.
I'm reading this book by Dr. Michael Ruscio at the moment, which is about gut health. And there's increasing research that suggests that it actually increases the diversity of your gut when you exercise as well, which is really interesting. Yeah, and it's quite early stages in terms of studies, but they've kind of initially found that, yeah, people who exercise a lot have more diverse guts, which is quite interesting as well.
That is interesting. Yeah. It's a mind-body total. It's the best thing you could do. If you are not doing any self-care, the first thing to do, I think, is exercise. I actually think exercise helps you sleep better too.
Yeah. Although I do see quite a lot of people in the gym checking their phones a lot while they're exercising. It's quite tempting, isn't it?
It's tempting, but it's terrible. It is really terrible. And you've got to break your addiction to the screen. It is the biggest enemy to presence and to quality of any moment at work or with another person or by yourself. You just don't get the same value out of it. It so dilutes the moment and distracts you from the moment that it almost feels like you didn't do the thing you just did. It's kind of like when you eat and watch TV at the same time.
Yeah.
You don't notice your food, and then you're still hungry afterwards. Like, you're back in the fridge. But if you sit down and you focus on that meal and you enjoy it and you're fully present, you feel so much more satisfied. And that's what you need to do when you exercise. It's what you need to do when you're working. It's what you need to do with your significant other. It's what you need to do when you spend time with your kids. Separate thyself from thy phone. It's not good.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, it's probably my biggest, the thing I work on the most, because I know that I've got a kind of inquisitive mind and I kind of want to do it all, but it never quite works out like that. And yeah.
If you can move toward, and I know it's addictive, by the way, Tony. I mean, it's like, I can say this and I think people it resonates, but like, it's almost physically hard to separate yourself.
Yeah. And
to stop. And the harder you're working and the more you are on it, it's the even harder it is to separate yourself. So I think that the key is to just think about, I think I have a couple ways that are sort of shortcuts to breaking your email habit. And email screens, it's just the addiction to the devices and always being on a screen. It's true the first and last hour of the day. If you can completely have screen-free time for the first waking hour and the first and the last waking hour of your day, it really will reestablish that you're in control of it and it's not in control of you. And it also starts your day and ends your day in a more grounded, present place. Really involved in whole life. You wake up, you smell the coffee, you feel the shower, the water, the temperature, you say hello to the people you live with, you eat your breakfast, you be present, because it's almost like a meditative start to your day of presence that you will be able to draw upon later in the day. Every time you start to feel the pull of the distractions, you're like, wait a minute, I got to be centered. I'm going to focus on this report right now, or I'm going to stay focused in this meeting right now. Start your day. Give yourself one starting hour of presence that you springboard into your day and draw upon the rest of the day. Every other time you need to focus. It's very powerful.
And what do you, in terms of children and screens, what do you recommend in terms of, I mean, this is something that I was chatting to Dr. Gabor Mate recently, and he wrote a book called Hold On To Your Kids. And he says if he had the chance to bring up kids again, he's in his 70s now, I think. He says the one thing that he would do is not have any screens in the house, which I thought, that sounds great. And then I thought, I'm not sure it sounds very realistic. So, I mean, where would you stand on screens?
Yeah. So, and there are a lot of recommendations out there. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually has guidelines that they reissue and update every year. They've gotten so involved in the dangers of screens for kids at various stages of development that there are recommendations you can look up online. I'll tell you what I have synthesized and what I believe from my work as well as the research. Number one, I think that parents have to remember that they are and take on the mantle of being media mentors to their children. Yeah. You are a media mentor to your child, whether you're conscious of it or not. So why don't you be conscious about it? And that means that you are consciously choosing when you use technology and when you don't, what you use technology for and what you don't. Just because there's so many things we can do on our devices doesn't mean we should do them all on our devices. Sometimes it's better to, this is an extreme, but instead of using your GPS, like if you're on a vacation, pull out a map and learn how to navigate on a paper map.
Yeah.
Right. So, and also what times of day in the household people are on screens. Here's one of the most important things you can do is to synchronize screen time in your house.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Synchronize it. So everybody is both off screens at the same time. And then when there is screen time, it's screen time for everybody. Because what happens in families and why did you say he wrote a book how not to lose your kid or how to hold on to your kid?
It's called Hold On To Your Kids. Yeah, that's the name of the book. Yeah.
So what happens with devices when everybody has devices is if it's not synchronized, you want to connect with your kids. You get home from work and you're like, hey, kids, I'm home. I want to hang out.
Yeah.
And they're like, not now, Dad. I'm on my device. I'm playing a game. I'm doing my whatever. So then you don't know what to do with yourself. So you pull out your device and then you start doing some work emails or start checking something online. Then they're finished and they're ready to talk to you, but you're in the middle of something. So then you're like, not right now. And then before you know it, everyone's gone to sleep and there's been no times of connection in the day. So synchronize. And I really recommend, there's one other thing I really like to recommend for families, which is maybe a compromise to your to this guy's not at all, is to have at the entrance of the Japanese homes, there's you park your shoes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Not only doesn't bring dirt into the house, but it sort of states we're transitioning into this sacred space, into a home. And I recommend you do that in the entry of your house. You have a docking station for all devices. You can put a nice sign above it that says, be here now. love the one you're with, right? And everybody just docks their stuff right there at the entrance, just like taking off your shoes. And then you enter the home. And if you guys decide that after dinner for an hour or half an hour is screen time, or, this time on Saturdays and Sundays is screen time, everybody can get up and go get their device. But it's not, and that physical barrier, the physical distance, it helps us transcend the physiological addiction to those screens.
Yeah.
Because you have to make more of an effort. And I tell you, if you just hang in there for a few minutes, what will astound you is that your impulses, I need to check. I want to see if anything came in. I want to do something. I want to get something done. I want to, it's this, activity. But if you just wait it out, kind of like a cigarette urge, if anyone ever quit smoking, you just kind of have to breathe through it. And then 3 minutes later, the urge passes, or 5 minutes later, the urge passes. And that is true with technology too. If you just hang in there, and then all of a sudden your brain kind of goes into a deeper gear and you're like, oh, I know what else to do. I can read or pay attention, or, pay attention to the food that I'm cooking, or you engage in a much more deep level. But your brain has to sort of go into second gear or third gear. Because I think when we're on devices, we're in gear one. It's fast, quick. So that's my recommendations with family life and screens.
That's really cool. And actually, that gear one, it's certainly not deep thought, is it? It's not deep creativity, it's not deep thought, and it's probably not us at our best. It's definitely not deep. Not. It's kind of very beta brainwave state, isn't it?
It really, really is. And that's why I, back to Never Check Email in the Morning, which is my productivity book for the workplace, which is really, the title is based on one of the most important strategies, which is I actually think you should not spend your first working hour on email or Slack or any of those communication devices. I think we should all spend our first hour of work every day on our most critical, deep thinking, what I call a legato task. It's the kind of work that takes deep thought to complete something, to innovate, to read, to strategize, to write something. The stuff that really moves the needle for our careers, for our companies, for our jobs. You do that in your first hour, and then you roll your shades up and see what the world needs from you. It will change your sense of control and accomplishment, and even your decision making the rest of the day is at a much higher level when you have conquered the big, most important thing. First thing in the morning, you're like, yeah, okay, now what does everybody need from me? I'm clear, I'm ready. It's a very powerful way to start your day.
And actually, it's probably the opposite of how most people approach it.
Yes, it definitely is.
Yeah.
People tend to, they have the big thing that they know they need to do, but first they want to see what everybody else needs from them and clear the decks, and then they'll get to it. But then they never get to it, because once you open up your email, it's filled with an endless amount of, requests and annoyances, and things get you into a crabby mood, and it's all reactive, and then it's very hard to quiet your brain and shut it all off and then be creative or be strategic. It just can't do it. So that's the stuff people take home at night and on the weekends, and that takes away from their personal time, and they're doing it when they're brain fried. You're exhausted when you get back on the computer at 10 o'clock at night to finally do that strategic planning that you had wanted to do, or that article, or you're so inefficient.
Yeah. I have got into a habit for the last few years of actually switching off not all screens, but all connectivity for a couple of hours at least every day. So I'll put everything into airplane mode and just kind of get on with it. And normally it's the best, couple of hours of my day. It really is. I'll be cooking, or I'll be reading, or sometimes thinking or working on something important. But actually, I think that, do you know what? What's interesting is I've been doing that for about 5 years. And as time goes on, it becomes harder, because technology worms its way into different... For instance, I used to do it whenever I was in the car, I'd be away from screens. But now I know if I use Waze in my car, I'll get to work 15 minutes quicker, so I use it. You know what I mean? It's actually harder to get away from technology than ever.
It is. Yeah. It is. And you're right. It does creep back in. And then you just have to realize that it creeped back up on you, and take a step back and... maybe recommit to it and recommit to something new and interesting to do in your screen-free time, right? You just got to double down. And don't beat yourself up. I think that's another mistake. Clients talk about this all the time. Oh, it worked for me for a really long time, or I was doing it and I was getting more done and I was feeling so accomplished and it was great. And then there was some kind of crisis at work, and it was all hands on deck, and now I'm back to, back onto the screens constantly. So, okay, and then they feel like they failed. No, you didn't fail. The big tech beast got a hold of you. You got to shake it loose again.
Yeah.
Their job is to keep us tethered. That's the business model. That's what they design. I mean, that is a Silicon Valley design, right? They're selling eyeballs, right? How many people can we get using this where they can't separate themselves? But you have to be stronger than that. But it's hard. Really
you actually have to treat yourself like a baby, don't you? Because
yes.
I mean, this new screen time feature that they brought in on the iPhone, I was really excited about that, because you can set limits on different apps now. But you can just override the limit really easily by just putting in your passcode. So it's not properly a limit.
No, that's right. And, one of the things I think that I have found helps us to resist the lure of technology is to have a very concrete alternative. I think we're living and working in a time where people are just so overwhelmed with, there's too much to do and not enough time, and there's so many conflicting priorities that at any given moment, they're not sure what of their conflicting priorities they should do. It's hard to make the choices, or they're so disorganized in their lists. They're like, if I start this, I don't know what I'm forgetting. And so they're quite overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed and don't know what to do, going online and checking email or going on Slack or checking the news or whatever is something concrete to do. So to combat the temptation, you combat it with very concrete things. For this 2 hours, like what you have, I'm going to be fully present in whatever I'm doing. I'm going to cook, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do a rough draft of this document from beginning to end. I'm going to take these 2 hours, and that is concretely what I'm going to do. And it's easier to combat the lure when you have a deliverable. I know exactly what I'm going to do instead of that. Not, if I don't check my email, I'm going to look at my 800 item to-do list and try to figure out which one I should do. No, let me just check my email.
Yeah.
So concreteness helps. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's I've been following you for a while and reading about your story online, and I know that you described yourself as hopelessly disorganized for many years of your life. What's your kind of day and your routine like now, and what's your life like now?
So now I have, I run my business. I'm a consultant, a speaker, an author, and my days, I work Monday to Friday. I'm in the office actually at 10 a.m. and I work till 6:30. I'm militant about my evenings and weekends being not working. I won't work in the evenings and weekends. That actually got a little bit of a challenge with this Time to Parent book, I have to tell you, because We launched in September, and the speaking engagements for parents are often at night and on the weekends.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I didn't see that coming. And I will say that after many years of being so disciplined and committed and thriving, I mean, I just thrive on that work-life balance, like shut off work at night and on the weekends and just refuel. And I love that balance. This has been a pretty big challenge. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it yet. I love speaking to parents. The reception to the book has been exceptional. It's like every speech has been electric. People are like, this is amazing. This is great. It's helpful. So I might need to, here's my thought, change my schedule where maybe I take afternoons off. If I'm going to be speaking at night, that I take an afternoon off. Or if I have to do a speech on a weekend, I take the day before off. I think to really maintain the flow of what I call that work-life continuum, and I'm spending time off in a way that recharges me and it gets me excited for work, and I'm spending my work doing really great things that really energize me, and then I feel good so I can then take time off. I think I might have to change the structure a little bit as long as I'm speaking to parents.
Yeah. What an irony that you've written a book about parenting. It's taking you away from those skills.
It's really, really interesting, or it's going to challenge me to do it at the next level, right? And I think it's always good when I get presented with a challenge that, like, I have plenty of clients who they're working in companies and they have to travel all over the world. And, like, what do they do when they have to travel on a Sunday or work well into the night? So I'll be able to really back up not just what is my advice to them, but how do you overcome all the things that will get in the way of that advice? So I think it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Julie, something I've asked everyone on Zestology is, what is one book that you would recommend to other people? And what is one tip for more living with energy and vitality? You've obviously given us a lot already, but what would your book and tip be? So
I was thinking the book that I there's so many books that I love books, and there's so many amazing books out there. But the one book that I would say I recommend the most often is a book called Bird by Bird by Annie Lamott. And it's actually a book about writing by a writer. And it's a very small book.
A book about writing.
Struggles. Yeah. But anyone who struggles with any form of writing, which I have found so many of my clients there's two things people procrastinate on the most: writing and finances. They have to write something, they procrastinate. If they have to deal with finances, they procrastinate. For the writing piece, whatever it is that you need to write, Bird by Bird is like the Bible to get over writer's block. It's a fabulous book. Fabulous. It's a short read, and it's like instructions on writing and life. It's a great read. So I think that will buy you back a lot of time that you lose to procrastination if you have to write anything for work or even thank you notes. So that's the book I would recommend. And the other question
was one tip for living with more energy and vitality.
Curiosity. I feel like curiosity is probably what drives me. Like, I think the world is filled with the greatest thing about living on this earth is that each person is a unique individual with their own interests, talents, skills. I think my work of taming the chaos in people's lives is so that they can make that unique contribution. And I think for me, every day is an adventure and a chance for me to learn, to look at the world through somebody else's eyes, to expand my thinking. There's always something to learn, and learn by looking at the world through other people's eyes as you meet them, get to know them. That's what motivates me.
Julie, my to-do list has just got longer, but I think that's a good thing, because I'm going to be sorting out, I'm going to be putting a little docking station at the door of the flat So the phone goes in there. That's a really good one. Thanks. It's been really great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you too, Tony. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And where can
good luck with the baby.
Oh,
Let's
thank
talk
you.
After the baby's born.
Yeah, I may need it. You'll be my personal consultant. We'll chat about once a week. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good.
Julie, where can people find out more about the book?
So they can find more about the book and my coaching and the workshops and speeches, etc., all at juliemorganstern.com, my website. And I have a podcast too called Time to Parent. So I hope you have great podcast listeners. Come and listen, give it a listen, and if you like it, stay involved with that. That would be great.
Great. Yeah, I just signed up to your parenting newsletter as well, so I'm looking forward to getting that as well.
Excellent. Yeah. All right.
Good, Julie. Thank you so much. Really lovely to talk
Tony.
To you.
You too. Have a great day.
That's it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening. Back here in London, still very early in the morning. And in fact, on the theme of success, if you are interested on that kind of topic in Zestology, I sent out a link in this week's 3 Zesty Things newsletter on how do you define success. So yeah, if you don't get that yet and you'd like to, you can head to tonywrighton.com and sign up for that. You get some free stuff when you sign up. And it contains links that you don't get anywhere else, and a lot of kind of hacks, gadgets, supplements, stuff that I'm taking, stuff that have popped up in the podcast. Things that catch my eye in the pursuit of more zest, which is the theme of Zestology, really. And the reason I kind of thought I'd do the newsletter is just to branch out a little bit, have another way of communicating with people, build the mailing list up a bit, and also kind of make it a little bit more of a kind of personal Monday morning thing. You can sign up for that at tonywrighton.com. Well, the birds are going crazy down here by the River Thames. We've moved here from central London, but it's still kind of fairly central. And we live near a place called Oliver's Island, which is a haven for birds apparently. So every once in a while, the birds go completely crazy. I try and come and record a podcast when the tide is very out. And, I mean, listen, I am no twitcher. I'm no bird watcher, so I don't know one bird from the other. But when the tide is out down here by the Thames, they go absolutely nutty. And it is quite something to see. It's still a little bit urban, isn't it? You can hear the train in the background, you get the odd speedboat going past and stuff like that. But it is very peaceful. And it's kind of early, foggy morning, and there are loads of rowers going past. And I'm just wondering whether some of those rowers are training for the boat race. Being someone who's lived in very central London for the last 12 years, so central that you could barely see a tree, it is absolutely lovely to be here. And since I've been down here, I've been walking down by the Thames every single morning. Plenty of trees, plenty of birds, and plenty of nature, and it feels quite special. One of the themes that comes up all the time on Zestology is spend a bit more time in nature. And since this is 2 minutes walk from my house, it is just lovely to come down here in the morning. I've tried doing walking meditations down here a few days as well, but there's so much to see that I just get distracted and I can't meditate and I just look instead. But yeah, it is fantastic. There's always something going on. Like speedboats going past. Right, that's enough from me. Have a lovely, zesty week, and I'll see you soon.